Alright, so I've got my pattern drawn out now, and also just cut it out with the scissors. Again, it's in this really thin cardboard. This is actually just a tissue box that was empty at my house. And you can see that when I put it on the steel, it just barely fits. So you can see what I was talking about before. If you make your pattern a little bit too wide, then it won't fit on the steel. So now I just need to trace it out on the steel, and I'm going to do that with a permanent marker. That's the best thing to use for this. And you just want to make sure that you keep the pattern, you get the pattern where you want, and you hold it really still. You don't let it move around a lot when you're, or at all, ideally, when you're tracing this out. And so again, this is why cardboard works so much better than paper, because paper tends to want to kind of move around when you're tracing around it. So there's some spots here where I go right up to the edge, and on those I just don't trace, because obviously I can't, and I just will remember that when I'm cutting it out, that if it's not traced, that then I'm going all the way up to the edge. It doesn't have to be 100% exact. I mean, the knife that you're going to finish with is not going to fit the pattern perfectly, most likely, so I wouldn't sweat it too much, but try and get it as close to what you want it as possible. That way it works out better. So now we need to cut this out, and we're going to use the cutting wheel on this mini grinder. You can actually use a wider grinding wheel, but it's just a lot more work to be grinding off metal versus cutting into metal. So I'm going to show you how I like to do it. I like to start on top, and the reason I'm telling you this now is because once the grinder is going, it's really loud. So I like to start on top and like cut along my cut along the top, and then once I get, and I kind of go back and forth until I get through the metal. Versus if you try and cut through all at once, it's really difficult to go around these curved edges with that blade, because it doesn't want to turn inside there, because it'll get bound up in there. So go on top and keep working it until you get through. Go on top and keep working until you get through, and just cut off different sections. Don't worry about getting exactly up to the line right now. We're going to do that later with a different grinding wheel blade. Now when you get into this, you'll see how I do this, but when you get into this this concave section of the knife, you cannot really come in here and make turns with this on the inside with this cutting wheel. So what you really need to do instead is, you'll see that I'm going to cut a bunch of little curves in here. So I'm just going to cut straight down a bunch of times all the way in, right? And then when I do that, now when I cut across this way, it's going to allow me to move my blade, because each time I cut one of these little curves off, it's going to pop off, right? So the blade's not going to get bound up in there. And also you'll notice that I'm not going to do this exactly. I'm going to keep myself away from the line. That way later I'm going to come in with a file and clean that up, and also with the grinding blade on the mini grinder. Okay. All right. I'm going to make sure I put on my safety glasses and my gloves before I do that. Just so that I keep myself safe. I am the first person to forget to do that stuff, but I want to model good behavior for you guys, and obviously we want to finish this shoot without me getting hurt. So all right, so got my gloves. Has a little hole in the finger, so I'll have to watch out not to burn myself there. And my safety glasses. All right, this is where the clamp comes in. We need to make sure that this thing is clamped in here really well. We don't want it to be moving around. I like to just clamp it. If you clamp it too far out, where you're working out here, if you clamp it way out like this, this is going to want to push down and be flexible and move around. So I like to have it clamped pretty close to where I'm working. So I'm going to clamp it right here on the handle of the knife, and I'm going to cut off this section, and then I'm going to turn this around and clamp it here and cut off the rest. Okay. one of the coolest things about knife making is that really the sky's the limit. You can make any type of knife you want with any type of handle you want, with any type of cutting edge you want, any size, any width, any thickness that you like, right?